Good evening, everybody. I call to order the January 14th, 2019 meeting of the Victoria City Council. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Sorry about that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hoorah. Okay, let's welcome our new council members. Yes! Is there a preference for who wants to go first to get sworn in? And Debbie, do you want to go first?
Sure, absolutely.
Who do you want to swear you in?
Cindy.
And you'll stand here, I guess. I'm going to stand. You just have to see. Yep, this is yours, so you'll have to stand it up. So I raise
Can we
your
get
hand.
close enough to the mic to hear you guys?
Face this way.
Stand on this side of the podium and face that way. There you go.
Okay. Are you going to say this and I'll repeat it?
Yeah.
back? Okay, very good.
Okay.
I, Deb McMillan,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to support the Constitution of the United States,
to support the Constitution of the United States,
this Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and to discharge faithfully
and to discharge faithfully
the duties of City Council member
the duties of City Council member
of the City of Victoria
of the City of Victoria
in the County of Carver
in the County of Carver
in the State of Minnesota
in the State of Minnesota
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
There you go. Congratulations. Thank you very much.
Who's next?
And then
Cindy, you're going to swear in Judy too?
I have to see. I, and then your name,
I, Judy Black,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to support the Constitution of the United States,
to support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and to discharge faithfully
and to discharge faithfully
the duties of the Office of City Council Member
the duties of the office of City Council Member
of the City of Victoria
of the City of Victoria
in the County of Carver
in the County of Carver
in the State of Minnesota
in the State of Minnesota
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. And then you have to sign that. Congratulations,
There you go.
both of you.
Thank you.
Let's have another round of applause for the new council members. Welcome aboard. Okay, I want to change one thing tonight in how the council interacts with the new council. When Councilmember Gregory and I spoke in front of the county commissioners, I noticed they did one thing, and it helps the council to avoid accidentally interrupting one another, and also lets me as the chair know when somebody wants to speak, and that is they just did this when they had something to say. And the chair would know that, okay, I need to call on that council member. I'd like to try to do the same thing. It doesn't have to be a pencil. It's just something so that I know that you want to speak. And then the other thing, so I don't accidentally cut you off, is when you're done with your points, let me know so that I can pass the floor to the next speaker. So I'd like to try to do that to avoid any unintended interruptions as we go forward. So just a little change. We'll adjust that as it goes. So with that said, at this point, do we have any changes on the agenda? Doug?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to remove item 6D, which is the park ordinance. Councilmember Black raised some questions about that. We have some conflicts in that ordinance as we proposed it and some other ones, so we'll bring it back to you at the next meeting.
Okay, is there any other items or just 6D?
No.
Council, any other adjustments to the agenda?
No.
Hearing none, I move we adopt the modified agenda, dropping item 6D. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. The agenda is adopted. Open forum. Is there anybody that would like to address the council? Going once, twice, sold. All right, moving on. Consent agenda. Consent agenda, anybody can remove anything from the consent agenda. At this point, is there anybody in the audience who would like to remove something? Staff, council, anybody want to remove anything? Real quick, I don't, Doug, I thought I saw on here, maybe I was wrong, where we had that issue with the paycheck. Is that in here in the consent agenda, or am I missing this?
The issue with what?
Oh,
With the paycheck?
Oh, the paycheck is, I gave you an email on that.
Right.
But it's not on the agenda.
Oh, I thought I saw it on the agenda. Okay,
If you
so
look at the bills payable, that check shows up as being paid again, but, yeah.
for some reason, I thought it was on there before. So never mind, it's not on the agenda, so forget all of that. So with that said, is there anybody that would like to remove anything from the consent agenda as listed here? Seeing none, I move we adopt the consent agenda. Is there a second?
second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion carries. The agenda, consent agenda is adopted. Next item, donations. Can we bring up the staff report? Okay, Mr. Gregory, do you want to acknowledge Sue and Alan Orson for their donation?
Make a motion that we accept donations from Sue and Alan Orson for a donation of $1,000 to the fire department.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you to the Orsons for that. Next item, Doug, 6A, organizational appointments.
Mr. Mayor, each year we have several appointments to make. The first one that's on the list is the Mayor Pro Tem. What I'd suggest you do is make motions for each one of these as we go through them, and then when we get to the resolution, we'll do the whole resolution as one other motion.
All right, can we bring that up? I'd like to see the Mayor Pro Tem. Mr. Vogt has been the Mayor Pro Tem for the last 2 years. I think it needs to be moved around. And I'd like to see Councilmember Gregory do it this year. And then next year we can move it. That used to be the process until the last council. So discussions, council?
If I'm asked to be pro tem, I would be, but I have no desire to take the opportunity away from somebody. So if anyone else, I would put myself in the running for Mayor Pro Tem, but if anyone else is interested,
Mayor, what I think we should get is a motion from somebody to appoint somebody.
So I move that we appoint Councilmember Gregory as Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a second? You know what to do it?
I'll second it.
Oh, you do? Okay.
So, Judy, Deb, comments?
I think I favored appointing a council member Vogt as Mayor Pro Tem again, just because of his experience in the role. And we're new council members, I think I would favor, so I would like to nominate.
Well, he's done it for the last 2 years, right? The process used to be until the last council, it would move every year across the council. I'd like to see that reinstituted with a new council. So, I mean, you guys have the votes. Let's just call for a vote then. Any other comment? There's a valid motion for Councilmember Gregory as Mayor Pro Tem. Any other comment?
Have you ever thought about just rotating?
That's the way it used to be.
No, I mean like
She means
rotating.
monthly or something.
Like for each time that we need a mayor pro tem, one person does it, and then the next time we need a mayor pro tem, the next person does it.
I don't know how you handle that in the resolution. It's usually done for a year. I'm not opposed to that if that's what the council wants to do.
Well, I was just thinking it would give everybody a chance to have experience in that, so that it's not just one person having experience for the whole year. It's just an idea.
I'm not opposed to that.
What do you think?
Deb?
That would be fine with me. I have no
Just kind of rolling.
Is that what you want?
What are some of the responsibilities of the mayor pro tem, other
You
than
just
to
run
run
the
the
meetings
meeting
if I'm not here.
if you're absent?
That's
really
that's
it.
really the only one that I'm aware of.
You just run the meeting if I'm not there.
And if they ran the meeting, he would then sign whatever was passed at that meeting.
I'm okay with going to a rotational basis.
All right, rotate it what, once a quarter?
Or
I
just-
would say rotate it each time it happens.
Yeah, so everybody gets a turn.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So everybody, I'm fine with that. So I'll withdraw my motion. I move that we just do it in alphabetical order, where each time one person on the council functions as mayor pro tem, the next time we take the next person in alphabetical order by last name. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none. Do you have any questions? You got that?
Oh, I got it.
Okay. What's the next one? The EDA?
EDA, Mr. Mayor, we need a vice president, a secretary, and a treasurer. And you would serve as the president, and then
That's by statute, right?
right. And so we need three others. You haven't always done that, and there will be no function. You only meet twice a year in that, but we do need a secretary, vice president, and treasurer. There's an assistant treasurer, so the treasurer doesn't really have to do the treasurers.
I think in the last 2 years, we never met other than for 2 minutes to say, we have no business.
Right. You have to do the bond payment for the city hall every year because you're renting from the EDA.
All right, so I would suggest, unless the council objects, we just take the order they are here, Vice President Judy, Secretary Tom Gregory, Treasurer Deb McMillan, just in order, since we don't do anything with it anyways. Any objection?
No objection.
No objection.
All right, I'll make that motion then, just to take the names as they were listed in order. Judy Black for Vice President, Tom Gregory for Secretary, and Deb McMillan for Treasurer. Is there a second?
Second?
I heard the second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. So that fills out the EDA.
That's right. Then I think the only thing you need to figure out is number 7, then the commission appointments.
Can we scroll down, please? Okay.
Looks like I'm a commission appointment.
So on number 7, I'm on finance by statutory requirement. Tom Gregory was there. What did the council members, is there a preference here for council members as to who wants to be on which committee?
There was,
I'd like to make a motion that Judy Black be on the Water Quality Committee, be the liaison.
Yeah,
I'll second that.
I'm fine with
I would
that.
like to do that, yeah.
Okay, so Judy for Lakes and Water. What about Park and Rec?
Should we make it?
I'm going to make a motion when we get them sorted out here. So hang on just a second for,
Just going to do them all at once.
I'll do them all at once.
But there's already a motion and a second for that one, so.
Uh-oh.
he's going to wait till he gets all 3 of them, then get a second. That'll work.
Oh, okay. There's,
So, yeah, I know where you're going. Hang on one second. So we've got Judy for Lakes and Water Quality, Park and Rec. Anybody want to serve on that one?
I'll be on it if no one else does.
Any objections? Anybody else want to be on it? All right, I'm fine with that. And then Finance, I'm already on that. Who wants to be on Finance with me?
I'd like to be on the finance committee.
Okay, any objections?
No.
All right, I move that we put myself and Deb on Finance, Tom Gregory on Park and Rec, and Judy Black on Lake and Water Quality Committee. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries unanimously.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, then you just,
Cindy, did you get that?
Yep.
All right, good.
and we just need a motion to do the whole resolution.
All right, to cover the other points, I move that we approve this resolution for the remaining items. Is there a second?
for all of them, because I'm putting in the blanks.
Okay, got it. I move that we approve this resolution in its entirety. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, that carried. Did we get it? Did we miss anything? Good to go. Next item, 6B, Astor Trail. Pat?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Dan and Lucy McInerney are the applicants, and they are seeking a lot width variance in a minor subdivision in order to create a new lot along Astor Trail. You see where the lot is located. Here's Astor Trail. This is the lot that they own, highlighted in yellow. They created a new lot in 2015 with this house. In 2013, when the city improved Astor Trail, which included a sanitary sewer pipe that would provide municipal water or sewer to the residents along Astor Trail, the staff proactively evaluated the properties to figure out how many of these properties could be subdivided and how many lots could come out of each lot that would meet the zoning ordinances. Staff at that time determined that the applicant's lot could be subdivided into 3 lots. As I mentioned earlier, they already subdivided it one time, and now they would like to subdivide it in the second time. They also, as part of the Astor Trail improvements, they had 3 stubs included in this in the improvements. So they anticipated having 3 lots in this development. The minimum lot width is 125 feet for lots within the shoreland recreational development area, which is because it's adjacent to Lake Virginia. I just want to note that if the property is zoned R1, and under the R1 zoning district, the minimum lot width is 80 feet. So they exceed the R1 zoning districts, but it's just because it's in the shoreland ordinance that they require to have 125-foot lot width. Here's the proposed survey. The proposed new lot here would have 130 feet, and the proposed, their lot would be 110 feet at the front setback line. When reviewing the variance criteria, there's state statute requires that the City Council review 4 conditions. The first one is the property owner proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner, not permitted by the ordinance? Staff believes that the property owner was assessed for Astor Trail for 3 lots, thus creating a 3rd lot with a lot width variance is a reasonable use. Second, is the property owner due to circumstances unique to the property that have not been created by the landowner? Staff's comment is that in 2013, staff, not the property owner, determined that 3 lots could be created meeting the zoning ordinance requirements, and therefore they were assessed the property owner for 3 lots to finance the improvements along Astor Trail. Third, will the variance, if granted, alter the essential character of the area? The lots in the area are generally large with wide street frontage. However, the adjacent lot has a lot width of 30 feet. And then lastly, if a variance is granted, will the outcome be in harmony with the purpose and intent of the ordinance and consistent with the comprehensive plan? The intent of the minimum lot width is mainly for public safety, so houses are visible from the street for police and fire protection. The proposed lot width of 110 feet meets the intent of providing the adequate frontage of public safety. Again, in comparison to the R1 zoning district, the minimum lot width is 80 feet. And what is being proposed is 110 feet. The Planning Commission reviewed this application at their meeting on December 18th, and they recommended approval of the variance to reduce the lot width from 125 feet to the 110 feet. Staff is recommending that the City Council adopt a resolution that would approve the minor subdivision and variance request at 6550 Astor Trail. The applicants are here if you have any questions.
Thank you. Council, any questions? Seeing none, I move that we approve resolution, number to be filled in, a resolution approving a minor subdivision and variance request at 6550 Astor Trail. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. It's approved. Thank you, Pat. Next item, downtown sidewalk ADA discussion. Kara?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This item is on the agenda tonight only for discussion purposes, so I don't have a lengthy presentation. You were provided a copy of the study ahead of time. So after I have a few brief remarks, we certainly could take any feedback you have. But this is just next step in the process that we've been working through. For a number of years, we've been talking about some of the conditions of the sidewalk in downtown. Two main areas have been higher on the list of topics we've talked about. A lot of the pavers that run along the sides of the sidewalk are settled, so you have these dips and these ridges in certain areas that make it unsafe and are concerning to us. But then also the ADA requirements have changed since we reconstructed all the streets in downtown back in 2003. So all the pedestrian crossings that we have are not compliant with current requirements for crossings. So we also wanted to take a look at that. Historically, we've done a little bit of work here and there. It was maybe 2 years ago, I think, and when we replaced the sidewalk along the Victoria House and along Randy's Way there. We did that a couple of years, and we were really kind of tackling each little section a little bit by a little bit, and we felt like we needed to have a more comprehensive look at everything that needed to be done so that then staff could begin to try to prioritize what would be the right way for phasing and financing and implementing any of the improvements that we want to make over some period of time. Both from a financial perspective and then just from a disruption perspective, we wouldn't want to be making repairs to every sidewalk all over downtown at one time. That might create a bit of a challenge. So Bolton and Mink put together a study for us. They conducted a field inspection, reviewed everything for current ADA compliance, and provided this draft memo that was provided to the council. Based on their preliminary work, they provided a budgeting estimate of about $200,000 worth of potential repairs that could be considered. We aren't necessarily suggesting that we would recommend moving forward with all of those, but as noted, our next steps would be for staff to develop recommendations for phasing, financing, and implementation. We'll also be seeking public input, so I have to chat a bit with Pat yet about how we want to solicit some feedback from the downtown businesses or downtown customers who are, frequenting the downtown area. And then we'd work towards finalizing the report and then begin with implementation depending on whatever phasing and financing strategy we came up with. I do believe that this, the finance director had some numbers from us at the time of budgeting last year, so there's a placeholder plugged into the long-term street maintenance fund for this work, but certainly we need to vet through how we would recommend doing it, and that certainly is subject to change as we work through all of those things. So with that, I would take any questions. Otherwise, I'm certainly happy to have feedback down the road.
I'll call you just a second. Quick question. I want to make sure I'm reading this right. Along here by Victoria Flats, looks like there's the number 8 and the red line.
Yep.
That sidewalk was just put in a couple of years ago, and that's not compliant?
Yeah, they flagged it for it becoming too narrow in certain circumstances by the planters, so where we have the planter boxes. So that's, the report's still draft, so we want to understand that a little bit better.
I was kind of wondering about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if the changes were in 2003, how?
The changes have been ongoing, so there's been changes regularly in the ADA requirements, so yeah. That.
So the question I'm trying to answer here is, if this is not that old, if it was put in and it wasn't done correctly at that time, is that something the developer would have to come back and fix, or the taxpayer's going to have to fix it?
Yeah, I don't imagine that we would be making any changes in that area right now, but we do need to understand with the consultant what they flagged it for, and we haven't done that yet.
So the consultant flagged it,
Correct.
not some kind of authority.
Correct. Yeah.
Got it. So it may not
Correct.
be out.
Yeah.
Got
We're
it.
still draft.
All right. Mr.
That
Vogt?
was one of our questions too, obviously.
Got it. All right. Mr. Vogt, you said you had other questions?
Did you say the budget dollars for this are in the capital budget, or in the, are we covered for this expenditure?
Kelly listed it in the long-term street maintenance plan in 2019, I think. No, that's not true. She didn't plug it in. I'm confusing this with our other project on the agenda tonight. This one is the one we have to figure out how we would finance
Well, we
it.
need to find money for this.
Correct, yeah. And, staff wouldn't be recommending that we, at least from our initial conversations, we weren't thinking we would do a $200,000 project this year. We might want to, invest $20,000 a year.
Chip away at it.
Yeah. Both from a disruption perspective and just a prioritization perspective. So we aren't obligated to make all these corrections, as an example, to the pedestrian ramps immediately, but we certainly want to make sure we're serving the public. So we want to figure out how to prioritize which things are the most important to address.
So Bolton and Mink, by virtue of their expertise, told us where we have non-compliance with ADA.
Correct.
To what extent is the city liable if we don't get this fixed right away?
Do you want to weigh in, Ann? Fits into an overall plan that Ann's working on.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. One of the requirements that we have to do, which I've been working on for about a year and hope to finish up in the first quarter, we need to provide an ADA transition plan that includes citywide pedestrian ramps, sidewalks, public buildings, parks. So we've been making significant progress on that. The ADA transition plan basically states you need to put a plan together to address all those things that are non-compliant. And the way you do that, especially like with trails, for example, or sidewalks, when we go into a redevelopment with the streets, we also look at trails and sidewalks that are in the area, and we incorporate those into the plan so we can include it with that project. A lot of the things that we've been finding, like in the park system, are real minor things that, from signage to mostly signage issues from parking lot and building areas, so they're relatively inexpensive. But the federal government states basically that you need to put this plan together, you need to state how you're going to implement, and it can be over a many-year period of time.
Oh, so
And
there's
a
no
process
drop-dead date.
and a process with which you use to do it. So you basically do have to commit to it, but put the plan together and say, here's how we're going to do it. You don't have to do it immediately, though.
So, I'm
What's a reasonable timeframe, though?
People have plans out 20 years or more.
So some of this stuff could go 20 years.
You need to identify important areas or priority areas, and I think the downtown
Priority
area would certainly be a priority area. And those are all listed within that plan, which will be coming back to you guys, hopefully in that first quarter. So.
Yeah. I was looking into that and reading some of the articles about being able to get funding for these upgrades, and if we were to need 250,000 instead of 200, then we could get funding. I also saw that we're having to get these plans together in order to get the funding by 2022 and 23. So my question on this would be, are we planning out so that we can see if we can get?
Certainly, I'm happy to look at it. I haven't heard it. I know there was an article in the paper this weekend for federal funding, so I need to look further into that.
Yeah.
Because
And our consultant had reviewed it as well, and we didn't quite reach the dollar amount with this project, but
Right.
certainly if we combine it with some other projects, then there might be an opportunity there, which certainly would be something we'd be considering as we try to figure out what.
It's an opportunity, it's not a guarantee, though. You're
Yep.
not gonna get it for sure.
Yep.
You apply for it.
Yeah, I mean, when we start looking at for our intersection and curb cuts and pedestrian ramps, I mean, we have a significant amount in the community that are non-compliant.
Right.
Simply because the requirements have changed.
Right.
So
So that dollar amount likely is going to be quite staggering when we come back.
So could we tie this into some of the things that I've been looking at as far as the crosswalk improvements that we need to make?
Yep.
Right.
And that would tie in and get us over the 250?
Yep.
Oh yeah, there won't be a problem going over
One of
250
those, then
citywide.
you double it.
Yeah.
So so I would suggest because we know we've got a number of, I think there were 5 crosswalks where we've need to make improvements. And some of that ties into road improvements with the county also, and these are county roads, so it's not under the control of the city. But I think the city, or I'm sorry, I think the county will work with us to try to expedite some of these things because of the safety-related issues. So I would like to, if the council agrees, direct staff to try to tie in the crosswalks into this, and maybe we can get over the amount, not that I'm looking to spend more money, but we can maybe get two birds with one stone here and at least get eligible for that grant money.
Yep, and if we're looking at that far out, we'll already have our transition plan done, and I know we'll be over that dollar amount.
So you're already working on putting that together?
Yes, yep,
So we'll be over it without the crosswalks probably.
oh, yeah. I mean, we have, right off the top of my head, I mean, we have 1,500 crosswalks that, 75 of them potentially could be non-compliant.
There we go.
So, I mean, you're $15,000 a crosswalk maybe, so.
And those are not included in this report from Bolton and Mank?
No.
Not this one. This is citywide. We have to do a citywide
Oh,
one.
this is just downtown.
This is just downtown. Yep,
Yeah, good question, though.
yep.
So, council, any other
Yeah,
comments?
just a few comments. When we get down to the design and construction of some of these crosswalks and sidewalks, a lot of our sidewalks now, we've implemented the grates around the trees, and then we put the brick around it, and that really does create ADA issues, and just from personal experience, I
Yep.
know that's a real issue. Are we going to continue with that type of design construction in our sidewalks, or is that?
And that's certainly, from a maintenance perspective, that's not one of my favorite things either. So that's where the planners and the public works people have a disagreement. But with this new section of sidewalk that we just put in, we made sure that the accessible portion was outside the landscaping.
It's outside
Yep,
Victoria Flats.
yep. So we look at that.
The
Yep,
Snyder side is very nice.
yep.
Crosswalks. Some of our crosswalks have cobblestones. Again, probably a maintenance issue and a very a comfort issue for wheelchairs and walkers as well.
We'd like to eliminate all of those.
Yep.
It's our,
That's part of the.
Also, we do have a crosswalk on the north side of Hartman's Main Street building. Any thoughts of putting a crosswalk on the south side going toward the Victoria Borough? Because there's good parking on the Rose Street parking, and a lot of people are parking there and trying to make their way to the borough. A crosswalk on the south side of that Main Street building, I thought would be beneficial. I mean, because I've done it myself. Parked in the handicap spots behind the Main Street building, and then you have to kind of go around the whole building
Yep.
to make your way around and then back towards the bureau.
Yep, and I think when the boroughs came in, we did take a look at that, and I'll make sure, but I think we had some real severe grade issues on the back side of that, where the parking is, on the north side, right? On the boroughs, or on the, sorry, on the creamery, on the creamery side.
Here, we're bringing up the GIS
Okay.
so we can see.
Okay.
Let's make sure we're
So,
talking about
the
the
Main
right
Street
thing.
The
building-
other side of the bank.
The Main Street, yeah, right between the bank and the post office
Okay.
and Hartman's building, right there. I don't think there's any grading issues. That's,
Yeah, I was referring to the creamery. I
Okay.
thought you were coming
right, no, we're on the.
coming east.
Guys, hang on a second, because I don't think we're all on the same page as to
Yep.
where we're talking about.
So between the post office and the Main Street building.
Right where the arrow is that where you're talking about, Tom?
Yep,
Okay.
and then crossing,
Yep,
right. Have a
Here.
curb cut there and a crosswalk.
okay, on the other side of the clock tower.
I don't think that I don't recall ever specifically looking at that location. That's certainly something we could take into account. I can tell you that anytime in downtown, have suggested anything that would result in the loss of parking spots, I get scolded.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's what comes to mind when I take a look at that there. And because we had, yeah. So I
It will
think
be
now
an
we have
issue.
one here and
Parking.
here. But we can take a look at that as a staff a bit more.
They can't see where you're pointing. Where's,
Between the building when you're going on.
No, yeah, you can make it all the way to the street, but there's no curb cut there.
Right. So you have to go up here to hit a crosswalk or.
Correct.
Or
hit
go
a
north
crosswalk.
or south, sorry.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we could do a curb cut there. Why couldn't we do it? That wouldn't take.
If you have a curb cut, you have to put in a pedestrian ramp and you have to have a
Gotcha, and
receiving
that would
ramp
lose.
on the opposite side of the street.
Oh, so that's gonna,
It's big
Yep.
time.
yeah.
Probably we would lose parking there.
People just don't like when I suggest that.
Tom, other questions?
Not off the top of my head, go ahead.
Yeah. Anyone else? Okay, I think, that give you what you need for
Yep.
direction?
Yep, thank you.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you, Kara. That completes 6C. 6D, reminder, was taken off the agenda. So 7A, Kara, this is yours again.
All right. This is the other item on the agenda tonight that I was thinking about related to the financing of it. But we had talked about this intersection a couple months ago related to submitting a request to the county for a stop sign at the intersection of highways 11, 18, and 43. Does everyone know where I am? Because I can go back to an aerial if we need be. So specifically back in a couple of years ago, the county conducted some initial warrant analysis on that intersection to see if we had reached the point of triggering warrants for a signal or a four-way stop or a roundabout. And while warrants weren't met the year they did that, they were predicting with the growth in the area, the consultant was predicting that warrants would be met in a couple of years. When the county was going through the process of preparing the road and bridge plan associated with the gas tax increase that they put in place, the city of Victoria requested that this intersection be included in that plan. The county did include it, and it is programmed in the county's plan for improvements in 2020. So in anticipation of constructing those improvements, a concept needs to be developed to figure out what the right answer is there. So relative to the stop sign, just to circle back to that, we did send that request from the city council to the county engineer. He indicated that they'd be happy to look at a stop sign at that location, but wanted to do it in conjunction with this concept development because the consultant will be looking at updated traffic counts and more current information. So specifically what is being asked of the city is to participate in the cost of the concept development. The estimated cost is about $55,000. It's proposed to be split 50-50. The city's share would be about $27,000. So that concept would take a look at, aside from the stop sign, but more specifically the potential to construct a roundabout at that location or a traffic signal at that location. Pedestrian crosswalk improvements are needed as well, so that would be reviewed as part of this. And the concept phase would take, they have in their schedule probably out to May, but we'd start to see information pretty quickly through the process. So the county provided their standard joint powers agreement, which is enclosed for your review. The joint powers agreement addresses the concept phase only. So any subsequent cost share that the city might be faced for this project would be based on the county's cost participation policy. So that would be determined, any potential cost to the city would be determined through that process. But because the city doesn't own any legs of this intersection, our financial role would likely be more related to the pedestrian improvements, any utilities. If we had city utilities that we wanted to replace while they were doing work in this intersection, we would have to fund that. But that would take place then. With that, I would be happy to take any questions.
So I know the county's doing a 2-year study of area traffic to try to fix 5 and County Road 82 or 82nd Street and a whole bunch of different issues. Is this designed so that we can quickly take some sort of action to maybe get a 4-way until that county study is done? And then, of course, if it's taking them 2 years to do that study, it could be another 2, 3, 4 years before they actually do anything. So my question is the purpose here is to quickly go through and get a 4-way stop sign to buy us time to at least control that intersection until that bigger picture question can be resolved?
So there's 2 different studies going on. The county approved this joint powers agreement at their last county board meeting. They also approved a contract with Bolton & Mink to complete the concept development. The intention is to build the improvements next summer. So if we're putting in a traffic light, we're putting in a traffic light next summer. If we're building a roundabout, if
Oh,
we...
so it's not this is to fix it, it's not a stopgap?
Correct.
Okay,
So they have programmed for pavement improvement, County Road 43 and County Road 18. So let me go to an aerial so you don't all have to guess what I'm talking about. As part of their pavement management program, they want to fix some pavement on 18, and then 43 has some issues all the way down to Marsh Lake Road. So as right now, it's potential that there'd be a mill and overlay type project on the rest of those roads in 2020, but they also would like to see this intersection improvement get incorporated into that overall project.
Perfect.
So that's this. Then the council quite soon actually is going to be seeing a joint powers agreement for this more significant study. So it's the Arboretum Area Transportation Study. The scope of that improvement includes looking at improvements to Highway 5 from 41 all the way to Dairy Queen, Rolling Acres Road from 5 up to 7, and then an extension of County Road 18, so the gravel 82nd Street from Bavaria all the way over to 41. That's a large 2-year study that is going to look at what improvements are needed to all of those roads, and some things we already know. This, a corridor study was done back in 2008 that still has a lot of relevant information on it. But the county wants to pull everything into one mini transportation study and come up with a recommended financing plan and improvement schedule, because all these other roads fit together so closely. So as an example, if you were to widen Highway 5 to 4 lanes through this wetland area, Highway 5 would really need to be closed in order to do that. It would be nice if the gravel road was improved before you closed Highway 5. That's not a foregone conclusion that would be a recommendation, but it's just an example. Also, the congestion at this intersection of Rolling Acres Road and 5 is partly so bad because of the congestion on 5, so the two pieces fit together, so wanting to look at that whole thing. So that actually will be back in front of the council for approval of a joint powers agreement. I just got a draft of it, so I think it'll probably be the first meeting in February is when I think it will be ready. That's the one that the study is going to last 2 years, and then, it might be another 5 years before anything gets built on all these other roads. But we want to get this thing fixed now, because it's certainly an intersection that the city gets lots of calls from citizens with concerns about it.
Perfect. Ladies first. Deb?
I just want to know how long this study on 18 and 43 and County Road 11 is planning.
So the concept phase, they think will take them about 6 months to complete, but then they'll move right into preliminary design and final design. So there'll be ongoing engineering work for the year with the goal to construct improvements next year.
Got it.
Okay, the council, in November, the council approved four-way stop control on 43, 18, and 11.
That's not our road, so you didn't approve stop
What
control.
did we approve?
We approved submitting a request to the county to consider four-way stop control.
And so where would that fit into the overall scheme of
So the
things?
county is willing to look at that, but wanted this consultant on board before they did that work. So Lyndon indicated that he would have them take a look at that quickly in the concept phase, and then certainly would be able to conclude if they're willing to go forward with putting the four-way stop in immediately until next year.
Because that's simple, low cost, and could give us at least temporary control until they did the final solution.
It would, but as I noted at the meeting in November, there will be impact on adjacent property owners due to cut-through traffic. So people, depending on how bad the backup is on County Road 11, traffic will start routing around on the residential streets to get past that. It would be important for them to do that traffic analysis so we don't end up with a situation where all the neighbors are mad because we asked to put a stop sign in without knowing what the consequences were. And so they can take a look at that
The
traffic
basis
data.
of the request was safety.
Correct,
that intersection is so dangerous at peak times.
correct. Yep.
Go ahead.
What she said. You put a stop sign in there, there's impacts on the neighborhood, and there's impacts in other intersections and that sort of thing, and I would assume that that would all be part of the study.
Yep.
Yes.
Council, anybody else? Okay, do you need a resolution on this?
I need a motion.
I move that we approve the joint powers agreement for intersection study on county, state aid highway, county highway 11, 43, and 18. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay. Doug?
Mr. Mayor, I have no report. I just called to your attention, one of the correspondence items came in from Dean DeVolis, the architect, on the 13.5 acres, and they're reporting to you their progress about halfway through the 4 months that you gave them to work on the preliminary design, and they think they're working on separate feasibility studies for the retail and for apartments, so I think they're moving ahead as we expected them to do.
All right, thank you. Mr. Vos?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, I guess I would just acknowledge the correspondence on the manager's report about the Department of Administration advisory opinion that you directed me to ask for. Department came back and gave an opinion that social media sites maintained by elected officials that are not sort of official city sites or aren't directed to be created by the city don't constitute government data. Council, I think, and council members newly elected are aware of that issue, and that opinion has been received. Other than that, Mayor, I have nothing to report.
Council members, any reports? Mr. Vogt?
Just so you know, the Steiner-Kelting Mental Wellness Facility Advisory Committee, which I'm on, will meet tomorrow morning, and so we'll be getting looking at their timetable. They're planning on having facility open early November 2019.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right.
No.
No?
I just wanted to say
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone and let you know that I'm going to do my very best.
Thank you. Tom?
No report.
All right. Real quick, I'd like the council to think about, we need to get together as a council and do a number of things, and I want to get this scheduled as soon as possible. I don't want to decide it now because I want you to have time to look at your schedules and your calendars. We need to get together as a council and look at all of the policies, and that's probably a workshop, I'm guessing. I'm open to options on when the council wants to do that. I think we need to get together and look at spending as a separate but related topic. And so I'd like the council to try to look and let Doug know when we can do that. I'm open to whatever the council wants to do as far as either a workshop or an extended Saturday session to look at these things. And the policies / ordinance, I guess it should be policies / ordinances. That ties into some of the spending, but when I'm talking about spending, I'm really talking about a kind of a deep dive. As far as I know, it's never been done, but a deep dive on department level budgets and seeing where the money's going. I'm looking for cost savings, and I think we need to start that process early. So think about those two items as buckets. Let's see when we can find a time to bring those together or get together as a council and have in-depth discussions specifically on that. And then as soon as possible, we'll get that out to the public. Other than that, we've got to go to closed session tonight. Can we get the motion up here? And before we actually go to closed session, let me explain how this is going to work. Tom, didn't you want to
Yeah,
talk real
I'll
quick?
make a motion with a, well, I'll let you do the motion, and I'll second it with a discussion.
Okay. So what we're going to do is this is specific to, if you remember when we had Steiger Lake, one of the property owners challenged the assessment that the city did. And so as part of that litigation, we go into closed session. The only thing that we can talk about in closed session Open meeting law allows us to go in there. We discuss this. This is the only topic we're going to talk about. Once that topic is done, we'll come back to open session and immediately close the council meeting. So there'll be no public discussion on any other topics. But in order to go to close session, we're going to turn the cameras off, the recorders off. Doug, is the intention to do it here, or are we going to go to a back conference room? Okay, so we'll go to back conference room so there's no accidental exposure. So so you'll understand what we're going to do and what the purpose of that closed session is. Once that's done, Mr. Vos, don't we make an announcement instead of tonight, since nobody's here, we'll make it in the beginning of the next meeting, and that's fine?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, you're required to do that when you close a meeting to do a personnel review, but it's common to do that, give a short summary, or have the lawyer give a short summary when you close. In this case, to have an attorney-client privilege discussion about pending litigation, it's not uncommon to have just a brief summary of what you talked about.
So, and in that summary, we won't give away anything that we're not supposed to give away, but we'll tell you what we can. So with that, I make a motion to go into closed session pursuant to Minnesota statute section 13D.05 subdivision 3 subpara B to engage in an attorney-client privilege discussion with the city's attorney regarding Laketown Investments LLC versus the City of Victoria case currently being litigated. Is there a second?
I'll second with discussion.
With discussion, go ahead.
I think it's important that we try to weigh the balance between confidentiality and the public's right to know. And I would like us to just give a brief outline of what was discussed at the August meeting, without revealing too much. I think we learned at the August meeting the principal individual or individuals behind who have controlling interest in Laketown Investments, and we had an amount that was offered, an amount that was rejected by both parties, and I just would like to identify those amounts and the people behind.
Can we do that?
Any objections from Mr. Vos or?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, the right to close the meeting and to keep things confidential is your right, not mine. I typically, in the course of negotiating a settlement, wouldn't reveal the parties' respective positions in settlement discussions, but I can't tell you that you can't do that if you wish to do that, but I'd prefer that I didn't do that. But I would agree with what the council member has said. We are having settlement discussions and we have exchanged proposals that we discussed at the last meeting.
At some point this will get resolved. After it's resolved, can we then provide the public with the sequence of events? And if that's the case, Tom, I would suggest let's wait until it's resolved and then provide all the sequence of events.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, go ahead.
I disagree with discussing this in any detail after the fact if we don't have to, because it would enable someone to understand what kind of strategy they needed to use to put duress on the council in the future.
Valid point.
So this game of chess that might be being played, I don't feel the need to review the moves after the game, because we're going to run into this again. The council's going to run into people contesting assessments, and our thinking and our strategies need to be useful in the future. So if Mr. Vos says we don't have to reveal this detail, I personally, as a single councilor, think that we shouldn't.
Judy?
I just had a question. I thought that after you go to closed meeting, it is recorded, and then after a certain period of time, then it's.
For real estate transactions and most transactions, that's true. Personnel actions, I don't think are recorded, and a client attorney is not recorded. Is that correct?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, obviously, if you felt inclined to record it for some reason, you could do that, but no, for the very reason that Councilmember Vogt indicated, you're not legally required to record closed sessions where you're getting attorney-client advice, because revealing that advice even after the fact can work to the detriment of the client of the city. So you're not legally required to record it, and so we did not plan to record the.
Is that also true in a personnel discussion? I don't want to sidetrack us, but
in a personnel discussion, you would be required to record.
All right, so this is the only time you're not required to record. All right, back to the point. Tom G., would you, do you still want to discuss it?
Well, I mean, I'll defer to the council, but personally, I think transparency should prevail here. We have the vast, maybe I shouldn't say the vast, but I think the majority of residents have had assessments against their properties, and we don't ask them to pay, we tell them to pay. And because most people realize that they can't fight it. They can't fight it. If they try to fight it, they're going to hire an attorney and end up spending as much, if not more, fighting it than just paying it. But so most people are in a position where they just have to pay it. And
What?
I think
I'm sorry, go ahead.
giving them information of an individual who's decided to fight it, and I don't think it puts us in a worse position down the road.
Yeah. So how about this? How about as a compromise? Go ahead and identify the individual who owns the company, the primary, if you will, but let's not talk about the amounts.
Council?
I'm fine with that. I mean, it's public information. You can look up membership or ownership of companies.
And they could try you.
I
Yeah,
believe
so-
pardon? Any objections?
I don't see any objections.
Oh,
Go ahead.
okay. I think it's my understanding that Lake Town Investments LLC is primarily controlled by Cal Haskins. That's my understanding.
Okay, so there's a valid motion to go to closed session. We're going to go to closed session. After that, we'll close the session in the back room. So there's a valid motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, we're going to move to closed session. Thank you, everybody. Okay, we're back. At this point, I move that we close the closed session. Is there a second?
Second.
Sorry about that. That's all right. All in favor of closing the closed session signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
We are now back in open session. Bob, if you will take just a moment and share what you can with the public.
Sure. Mayor and Council, we've just come out of a very brief closed session to talk about the pending litigation in the case that you, Mayor, read into your motion to close the session. We discussed where the case is. We discussed some settlement discussions that have been ongoing, and you gave me direction, gave Doug and I direction. And with that, that's my report on what we've talked about.
All right, thank you. Before we go and adjourn the session, in my mayor's report, I forgot to mention one thing. I want to get this out to the public, and Bob, if we can have this put out on the website. The other thing that we as a council need to talk about as quickly as possible is finalizing the road design for Marsh Lake Road. And we need to expedite that, but I want the new council members to have a chance to get up to speed. So that's a third item, and I forgot to mention that. So
That you want to have a meeting on? Is that?
right, we want to get that done as quickly as possible, but since everybody left, I want to make sure that people along Marsh Lake Road and others that are interested hear that that's a third item that I want the council to get together. So let's get that publicized because I forgot to mention it before. So with that, I move that we adjourn. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We are adjourned.